So today we're going to do we're going to get into the nitty gritty of what you have to do. Up until now we were talking about more general. So the first rule is that your job in life is to please your husband. And Chazal say, Isha kshera osa ritzon baila. Now we touched on this last time, and there's a rule, chesed begins at home. This is one of the distortions of our society. People treat their family members in the world at large, they treat the family members miserably, and to everybody else on the street, they're just wonderful. And that is a distortion. The way chesed works in Torah is chesed is a series of concentric circles. First, take care of your inner circle, then go to the next circle, and then go to the next circle. There's an idea of aniyeh ircha kodbin when it comes to tzedakah. First you take care of your relatives, then you take care of the next level outside, then you take care of your friends. In Torah, we work from the inside out. The world at large, and that's why you have all these people who have, in the vulgar world that we live in, so you have all these incidents taking place at work, and people meet people, they run off, and marriages break up, because at work, everybody's on their best behavior. And so, the same woman who gets interested in a man, or a man gets interested in a woman at work, is because, oh, she's so sweet, and he's so charming. That's because neither of them have seen each other at home. That's because in work, then when they marry each other, then they split up because they see that they are miserable, despicable people. But when you're in the workplace, everybody's on their best behavior, and it's always easier to be nice to people outside. Why that is, we could why it is for any one of several reasons. In marriage, often is because you're expecting something from him also. What, I got to do everything for him? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. The same way he has to do everything for you. I had an Avrech who told me that his chassan teacher told him that marriage is 200% his responsibility. It's 100% his responsibility and another 100% his responsibility. So that is really the attitude. The attitude should be for a woman in a marriage. Your chesed, all of your chesed work first. You have to make sure that your husband is taken care of. That is the rule. The Chazal say, Godol ha-mitzuva va'osa mimisha ena mitzuva va'osa. A person who is got itzivui is always got more schar, a mitzuva va'osa. Because when you're a volunteer, it's more fun. When a person who is a volunteer, it's more fun. I think I once gave you the example, I don't know if I did or didn't, but if you walk into a shul and you see two men in the shul, one of them is putting on his tefillin like this. He's yawning, he's putting on his tefillin. You got another guy who's putting on his tefillin like that, and then I say to you, one of them is a Baal Tshuva and one's an FFB. Now, if you had to guess, which one would it be? Which one is the Baal Tshuva and which is the FFB? And the answer is that you know as well as I do what the answer is. The answer is that the guy who looks enthusiastic is obviously a Baal Tshuva, and the one who is yawning is an FFB. Now, why is that? And the answer is because the FFB feels he has to be doing this. A Baal Tshuva, somewhere inside a Baal Tshuva feels, I don't really have to be doing this. I chose to do it, and at a certain level, I'm a volunteer. As long as you volunteer, if you ever go into a hospital and you have the nurses and you have the volunteers, right? The nurses are all walking around dragging their feet because they're tired and they have to do it. The volunteers are all snapping their gum, just looking for somebody to help. Why? Because they're volunteers. You're a national hero. When you're a volunteer, you're a national hero. So when you bake a cake for your neighbor's kiddush, you're all into it. When you're baking a cake because your husband asked you, as he left the house, as your husband, I'll give you another example. Just imagine you're going to surprise him. You decide, I'm going to surprise him. He's learning good, and I really appreciate the ruchnius he brings into the house. I think tonight I'm going to make his favorite. I'm going to make him a blueberry pie. And just as he leaves the house, on his way out, he says, oh, by the way, maybe you can make me a blueberry pie tonight. And what just happened to your enthusiasm? Just let the air out, right? Let the air out. Why? Why should that be? You were going to make it anyway. What changed? Nothing changed. Just one comment from the person who gave you a ksuba, right? That's the only thing that changed between what you were planning on doing and what happened. And all the wind has been let out of your sails. Why is that? The answer is because until he opened his mouth, you were a volunteer. Once he asks you to do it, then you're a mitzvah v'osa. Now you have to do it because that's what your husband, that's you know for a fact that he wants. The same thing when a man on a Motzei Shabbos decides I'm going to surprise her, I'm going to do the dishes. Okay, we're into science fiction now. But a man is going to, I'm going to surprise her, I'm going to go over and I'm going to do the dishes. So he starts walking towards the sink. His wife is in the back room and she says Herschel, can you please do the dishes? takes out all the other, I was going to do them anyway. You know, whatever, you were going to do it for her anyway. The answer is up until that point, I was a volunteer. Now, I have a gun to my head. And gadol mitzvah also means that a person, once you're commanded to it takes the fun out of it. When you're married, you're a mitzvah v'osa. You have to understand that. You're a mitzvah, he's also a mitzvah v'osa. But you are a mitzvah v'osa. It takes the wind out of your sails. Mimela, it's harder. Mimela, that's generally a rule in life. When you have a choice of two things, which one should I do? I have two mitzvahs that are possible. Which one should I do? The rule is generally that the one that you really want to do is probably the one you shouldn't. The one that you want to do less is really the one you should. It doesn't always mean that, but that's generally good because the Yetzer, very rarely is there a Yetzer hara telling you, a Yetzer tov that makes you feel like really enthusiastic about a mitzvah. If a man's really eager to go to shul, that means his wife probably needs help at home. Right? That's why he's so eager. All of a sudden he's up early and going to shul. Why? Because he knows if I don't get out of here, I'm going to have to help her. That means they should probably be home helping her. That's the general rule. So you find this in other areas because, for example, usually people are sad. We're our saddest on Yontif. That's when we get melancholy because that's when we're supposed to be happy. We hear the funniest joke of the year on Tisha B'Av. It's usually how it works because, in general, that's the way that's the what do you call it? That's the challenge. Now there is a medrash, and the medrash says it's a beautiful medrash in Shir HaShirim Rabbi. The medrash says there was a couple that was married 10 years and didn't have children. So they came to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. What happened was, a couple didn't have children for 10 years, and the husband said to the wife, listen, we don't have children. Unfortunately, the halacha is we have to split up. So take anything you want, take your most precious possession, but you have to go back to your father's house. We have to split up, we have to get a get. So they decided before they do this, take this drastic step, they'll go to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, it was the Gadol Ador. So they went to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said, the husband came in, he said, listen, unfortunately we don't have children. My wife could have whatever she wants. She should take whatever she wants, but unfortunately we have to split up. Rabbi said, yes, you're right, but I want you to split up the same way you got married. You got married with a banquet. You made a banquet when you got married. I want you to get divorced with a banquet. Don't know exactly how you do that. You send out, I guess, misprinted invitations, and you serve lousy food, and you have a really bad band. Right, which is any band nowadays, and whatever it is that you do at a divorce celebration. So they go to what do you call it? Okay, so they're at the celebration. In the old days, they used to drink wine. Wine was a common beverage. Now we drink pop. They used to drink wine. So they're drinking wine, and the husband is getting already. He's had a lot of wine, and he's a little drunk, and he's ready to fall asleep. And he says to his wife, "Okay, this is it. We did Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said." He collapses. He falls asleep right on the couch. So his wife calls over 4 of the servants. And she says, okay, pick up the couch and follow me. So they pick up the couch and they follow her to her father's house. The next morning, the husband wakes up and he looks at her and says, where am I? So the wife says, well, you told me to take my most precious possession. You are my most precious possession. Right? You thought the end of it, well, that couch is my most precious possession. Now get off, will you? I want that couch. No. She said, you are my most precious possession. Okay, they went back to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai gave them a bracha. He heard the story, said, I give you a bracha, you should have a child within a year, and within a year they had a child. That's what the medrash says. Beautiful medrash, the Hakadama of Shir HaShirim Rabbi. So the Farshim may ask, one second, the obvious question, if Rav Shimon Bar Yochai could give them a bracha, so what do you have to put them through that torture for? What do you have to put them through that for? Give them a bracha right away. What do you have to go put them through the torture of having to have a public, what do you call it? Just give them a bracha right away. That's what the Farshim asks. The answer is that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, when they first came to him, the husband said that, unfortunately, we have to split up. My wife should take whatever she wants, but we have to split up. So he heard that the husband is totally devoted to the wife. He heard the husband's totally devoted. What he didn't know is how devoted is the wife to the husband. At the point that the wife showed that he is her most precious possession, at that point he said, okay, I give you a bracha, you can go on, you have a baby. There are several Musar lessons here. It's very interesting because at a bigger level, it is a mashal to Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kaviyachol is the husband. And in Shir HaShirim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the husband. The husband is fully devoted to the wife, which is Klal Yisrael. What we don't know is how devoted is the wife to the husband. At the point that the wife demonstrates total devotion to the husband, at that point we're ready to go on to the next stage, which is the unborn baby, which is obviously Mashiach. We are in it's called Chevlei Leda, Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach. At the point that we are showed total devotion, Klal Yisrael as a group shows total devotion, then we're ready to go on to the next level. That's what the Farshim explained. In a marriage, so I didn't understand the medrash. What does that mean? You can have the baby. First, I think one of the lessons here, I'm not positive. I think one of the lessons here is that a person in life is often in a situation where they're not satisfied. They always think that when I have the next thing, I got to get to the next stage. I'm not satisfied. And a person should know that first be satisfied. If you're satisfied with what you have, then you're ready to go to the next stage and have the baby. If you're not satisfied with what you have, then get to the next stage. It's going to help you anyway. You won't be satisfied with that either. And I think that this is a rule in life. This is parenthetical, not necessarily related only to Shalom Bayis, but it certainly does apply in Shalom Bayis. It certainly applies in marriages. Certainly if couples are waiting for children. People have this idea. Right now I'm in limbo. People sometimes say, I'm in limbo. Well, I finished SEM and I'm not yet married, so I'm just in limbo. I'm waiting to get married. Now we're married, but we don't have kids yet, so we're in limbo. That limbo could theoretically be in all stages of life. I'm in limbo. We're just waiting for our kid to get in the cheder. We're in limbo. Now we have 9 boys but no girls, so we're in limbo. Right? You're not in limbo. You're in Gan Eden or whatever it is. But you're not in limbo, whichever way it goes. I don't know. 9 boys, 9 girls. I'm not sure. I know a couple has 10 girls. I know a couple has 10 girls, no boys. And I know another couple. My daughter went to school with a girl. They have 12 daughters and 1 son. Guess who sits next to Daddy on Shabbos? 12 girls and 1 son. So you'll get these situations. But a person should never feel, right now I'm in limbo. Right now you're always in limbo in life. Right now I'm in limbo. Until I pay my gemachim back, I'm in limbo. And until I marry off all my children, I'm in limbo. Until I marry off this, until I have grandchildren, until I'm in limbo. You're always in limbo. So we're never in limbo. We're never in limbo. Each day, whatever we're doing today, that's our avoda of the day. It doesn't matter what you're saying. You're always going to be in limbo. You'll always feel you're missing. So once I get it, right now I'm in limbo because we haven't bought a dira yet. So we're only renting, so we're in limbo. So what does limbo mean? You're putter from all the mitzvahs? No, you're putter from kol haTorah kula. It doesn't. You're never in limbo, and you're always in limbo. So that means we're never in limbo because there's always something, another stage in life. I mean, Mela, we don't view life that way. We take life. Right now, this is my matzav. Right now, this is my avoda, and right now, this is what I'm doing. So that's as far as the rule. Now, we'll go through a few specifics. The first is, and this comes from the Ben Ish Chai, that a wife always has to take care of her personal appearance, how she appears to her husband. Now, should never be underrated, and we are realists. We are not idealists, we are realists. In other words, we are idealists. And in an ideal world, it shouldn't be an issue. In an ideal world, who cares? In an ideal world, don't make such a big fuss over it. But we are realists, and therefore everybody cares. And therefore it's something that should never be underemphasized. So a wife must take care of her personal appearance. Now, obviously, people are different in the home. But you have to understand, a man comes home at the end of the day. So after 10 minutes anyway, he doesn't notice it. But the first 10 minutes when a man comes home, a wife should be at her best. That's a rule in life. A wife shouldn't save her best for outside, which often people do. And the husband gets to see the practice uniforms, right? The husband gets to see all the shmatas, and then when she's going to go to the doctor, go out with her friends, or go out with everything, then a wife puts herself together, and that's also a distortion. There's a Gemara that says, Abba Chilkiah, who was a grandson of Choni Amagel. You talk about Choni Amagel, everybody knows he made the rain. And he made the circle, he got in, he davened for the rain. He had a grandson, Abba Chilkiah, who when Klal Yisrael needed rain, they'd come to him to daven for rain. Okay, so we're talking about a Tana, and we're talking about a man who's on the level where all of Klal Yisrael came to him because they needed him to daven for rain. And the Gemara says there's an incident there where his wife was dressed up completely. She was dressed up, put herself together as best as she could. And they said to her, why did your wife dress up there? There's a series of questions. And they said to her, why did your wife get all decked out? He said, well, she doesn't want me looking at anybody else. She doesn't want me looking at other women. So she took care of it. Now we're talking about a Tana over here. We're talking about a Tana. So your husbands are good. I don't know if they're Tanaim. And so a person has to understand, this is part of the reality of life. It is a responsibility. There's even a Chazal that says, Ein Isha Ela Liyofi. A woman is there for beauty. A husband wants to enjoy his wife's appearance. And therefore, a woman can't obviously always be at her best. On the other hand, it could be more often than she is. And there has to be a certain amount of conscientious effort that's put into this area. I heard about this lady, this is one of these Reader's Digest stories. The garbage men come, they're collecting in America, they're collecting the garbage outside the house. Then this lady comes out and she's got the curlers in the hair and she's wearing her house coat and she's got her curlers in her hair. You know, she just woke up. She just had her first cup of coffee. And she comes running out with this bag of garbage. And she says to the garbage, is it too late? Is it too late? She says, no, ma'am, jump right in. So, you know, no husband wants to see that. And no husband wants to see that. And therefore, it should be a certain amount of time and energy and effort that's put into that area, certainly in the early years of marriage. Certainly in the early years of marriage. After a while, it dissipates. But in the early years of marriage, and it never totally dissipates, by the way, but in the early years of marriage, there should certainly be something that there is time and energy put in the home. The other thing you have to do is you have to contrast the outside world. Now, I feel bad for you. Because you are living and you are going to raise children in a world which is more vulgar than it was 20 years ago, more vulgar than it was 40 years ago, and certainly more vulgar than it was 60 years ago. So the lack of tznius and the vulgarity in the world, which obviously has crept into our camp as well, but you have to understand that that your husband, if he's in koilel, it's okay, so he goes from the home to the koilel. But if your husband's a working man, he's out working in the workforce. So, you know, there's all sorts of stuff, all sorts of garbage going on out there. Therefore, a woman has to do her best to offset it to the best that she's capable of offsetting it. And again, I'm only saying things that some people are afraid to say. We're not afraid to admit the truth. We are honest people. We are not people who try to, you know, it's like I was asked by a guy who went to the yeshiva, you know, why do the Orthodox have mechitza? Are they on such a low level they can't daven without the men looking at the women? And I said to him, yeah, you know, we're not on the same high level that the Reform and Conservative are. You know, we're at a much lower level. Yeah. The answer is, you see, Chazal did it in the Beis HaMikdash. Chazal did it, put up a mechitza, they made an Ezer Sashim, and they tried twice, 3 times till they got it right. So we understand what the Yetzer Hara is. We understand what a man's temptations are, and therefore that is a major responsibility that a wife has. Rav Moshe has a tshuva. Rav Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva. A couple that got married, two Hasidic, a Hasidic Bacher and a Bacherette got married, and she came from a tradition of Hasidim that shave their heads. The women shave their heads for whatever reason. I don't think it's because of Kinim, but she comes from wait till you have 4-year-olds, then you'll find out about Kinim. So she comes from a Hasidic group that the women shave their heads, and the husband comes from a group that didn't. He did not want his wife to shave her head, so they asked Rav Moshe. And Rabbi said, it's certainly a very important inyan for a wife to maintain her family's traditions. And if the family shaves her head, it's very important for her to maintain her family's traditions. Very important inyan. But it's a chiyuv for the woman to please her husband. Therefore, it's absolutely usher for her to shave her head if her husband doesn't want her to. That's certainly a very important inyan. Inyanim are always important. Chiyuvim are more important. And therefore, the wife has to please her husband. It's not, we're not playing about a game. We're talking about shalom bayis. Number one. Number two, so again, I think that this has to be certainly emphasized, that women often put more care into themselves when they leave the house. This is standard. It's a makas medina. It's a makas. Women, I was taught years ago by my wife, she said to me, women dress for other women. Right, which to a certain extent is true. Nobody suspects our types of wives of B'nai Torah aren't dressing to attract attention of other men. So when they're going out of the house, they're dressing because they're going to see their friends and everything else. That's fine, that's great, that's wonderful. But no less, and to a great extent, much more, emphasis should be put on your husband, number one. Number two, any of the clothing you wear and styles should be what he likes. Not what you like, what he likes. And again, I'm talking about if there's a conflict. If there's a conflict, your husband doesn't like a certain type of tichel or a certain type of color or whatever it is that men have their shigin alach. But your job shouldn't be what you like and get him to like it. Your job is what he likes. Again, we're only talking to people who want to please their husband. Somebody who says, I don't care what my husband likes, that's something else. The man's job is to try to like what you're like, whatever your wife does. But we're not talking to the men right now, except to the camera. We're talking to the women. So those of you that watch this with your husbands, don't know what to tell you. Okay. There's a quote here from the Ben Ish Chai. I just want to read you his quote, the beginning of his quote. This is the Ben Ish Chai, and you're talking about in what do you call it, in Baghdad. Quote, this is from the Ben Ish Chai. She must always be dressed well and be particular about the cleanliness of her clothing. Okay, in our days, it's not an issue. It is a woman's responsibility to pay special attention to her conduct in her husband's presence. She should adorn and beautify herself for him. Even though he may not show particular concern for these matters, she should adorn herself and do the best she can in the area of cleanliness, tidiness, and general conduct. Now, sometimes men don't show a response, they don't show a reaction until it's negative. You know, sometimes the wife is dressed and the husband not saying anything, because by him, that's standard. In other words, the question is, what's the average and what's the below average, what's above average? So the man only you're saying, well, look at the effort I'm putting in, and the husband doesn't even notice, because he's like, well, that's how it should be. And that's how it should be. And the wife sometimes will, once it drops below that, then the husband says, you know, you're not really, did you get that at the Salvation Army? Or, you know, is that supposed to be the theoretical possibility of matter without form? You know, so all these things that the husband makes the comments, but that's only after things have dipped below what he considers average. Now, what your job will be is, by the way, you know, sit him down again. Some men need to be educated. By the way, I just want you to know that it takes time and it takes energy to care for myself the way that I do it. You should mention it once in a while, like every 10 minutes. Okay. I just mentioned this in Shir today because this came up in the Gemara. And I have it here in the notes as well. When Ezra brought back Klal Yisrael after Golus Bavel, they came back to Eretz Yisrael, he made several takanas. And one of the takanas that he made was that peddlers who go from city to city selling women's cosmetics cannot be held out of the city. In other words, in certain areas of halacha, if a man wants to go sell lechves, he wants to sell candles, and he goes to a certain city, so then the candle merchants can say, "What do you come into our city selling your candles for? You know, you're hurting our parnasa." Ezra made a takana, women's peddlers who are selling cosmetics and all sorts of whatever it is that women do. So then they cannot be held out of the city. They cannot have a city. Women have to have cosmetics. Cosmetics is aleph beis for women. For a woman, cosmetics is as basic and fundamental as a sports page is for a man. And therefore, women have to. Sorry about the analogy. Women have to have cosmetics available all the time, because that is such a fundamental part of the marriage. Okay. Now, when it comes to food, so first of all, men. Again, I'm generalizing. Men do not want to take food on their own. Men do not like the idea of walking into the house and taking food. And it personally, and I don't mean to be overly harsh here, it is certainly, unless you have little babies to take care of, in the early years of marriage, even in later on, a wife has to distribute her time in such a way that she has food ready for her husband when he comes home. That is part of the normal relationship, it's part of the expectation, and it creates the bond between the husband and the wife. The bond is created over the food. And a wife, obviously, you know, even the Goyim say the weight of a man's heart is through his stomach. A wife has to, that is part of her basic responsibility. Don't worry, she'll serve you, don't worry. See, I told you, men don't like waiting for food. So men do not like taking food on their own. It's one thing if you have to be out of the house, you leave a note or something. But as much as you can, don't leave him on his own when it comes to food, number one. Number two, if you're going to experiment with new recipes, right, just make sure you know who your husband is really well. You know, there are some men who, doesn't matter, whatever you make, that's fine. You know, they'll take it down, it doesn't matter as long as they're full. And they're good about it. They're good sports. But the other men who are not such good sports. So if you're going to experiment with a new recipe, just make sure you have the safety, the safety in waiting. You know, in case it doesn't work, in case he just isn't into some sort of new onion spinach souffle. You know, so just make sure you do have some fried chicken or something waiting for him, just in case that doesn't do it for him. Number three, and again, I tried to. It sounds humorous and it almost sounds childish. But you know yourselves how many fights there could be in a marriage simply over food, over things like that. Men do not like leftovers. And forget that music about, leftovers taste just as good as fresh, right? They don't. I know your mother's told you and my mother told me, leftovers is just as good as fresh. They're not as good as fresh. That's why it's called leftovers. And when you put it in the freezer on Motzei Shabbos, that is not called frozen fresh. Now, I've been through this. That is not frozen fresh. That is frozen Motzei Shabbos. Frozen fresh means you took it out of the oven and you put it into the freezer. That's frozen fresh, and it's going to taste fresh. There's no such thing. Women are big balei imuna. Women have tremendous belief. They believe that if you take food on Tuesday and you freeze it, Shabbos chicken on Tuesday and you freeze it, they believe that after 2 weeks in the freezer, it's going to come back to life. And it's going to taste just like fresh because the freezer has magic qualities, and it doesn't. It doesn't. You put it in the freezer on Tuesday, it's going to taste like Tuesday, 3-day leftover food. That's what it tastes like. It's just going to be colder. And then you take it out of the freezer. Freezers don't magically cure the food. I do not like leftovers. I had this out with my mother for years. My mother always told me that her daughter-in-laws are going to curse her because I was an incredibly finicky eater, which I still am. People in the neighborhood think that we're very frum because we never ate. I made a rule right when we got married, we do not eat out. We do not eat out. And the reason I don't eat out is because I don't like other people's food. I don't like people's cooking. I don't want to have to guess what it is at the table. I don't know what, if I have to ask what it is, I don't eat it. I don't like fish. So all it is a series of insulting the hostess. And I can't just sit there at the table and say, well, I'm just not hungry. You know, it doesn't work. So I made a rule, we eat at home. My wife's cooking, we eat at home. My parents, that's it. So people think we never accept an invitation. They go, wow, well, you want to be machamer. I'm not machamer at all. If I'm hungry, it's kosher. But only the food that I like. So you have to know who your husband is. You really have to know who he is. Leftovers, I made a deal with my wife after she tried that music about, well, leftovers taste just like fresh. I said, you're absolutely right. Give the kids the leftovers and I'll have the fresh, because anyway, it all tastes the same, so mine have gemina. So I don't, that's a what do you call it? So that I get to pull rank on that. Once in a while you have to, if you're on a budget and so on and so forth. But don't think that that's considered a fresh meal. The husband says, oh good, we had a nice fresh supper, and you're serving it. I know my wife told me she has friends who freeze cholent. Right? She has friends who freeze cholent, and they take it out of the freezer during the week, and they warm it up in the microwave, and then they serve cholent during the week. So I guess it's whatever you train your family. And I think you could be arrested for that. I actually heard about a woman who's sitting at a Shabbos table as a balas tshuva, or a potential balas tshuva, sitting from family in our neighborhood. She's sitting at the table on Shabbos of one of these 20th century, 21st century potential balas tshuvas, and they're sitting at the Shabbos table, and so at some point, the 7-year-old daughter got chutzpah. I don't know, she said something to her mother. So her mother got up, she leaned across the table, she slapped her across the face. So this girl gets up, she says, I saw that, I'm reporting you to the authorities. Right? She stormed out of the house. I don't know whatever happened in the end. Right? But if I was at a house where they served frozen cholent, right, I would do the same thing. I saw that, I'm reporting you to the Food and Drug Administration. You could go to jail for a long time for that. The last thing over here is don't tamper with successful recipes, ever, under any circumstances. If you have a good recipe, don't play around with recipes. And I advise women, it's not difficult, leave raisins out of the house. Raisins are bad for shalom bayis, right? Unless you know that your husband is a raisin guy, don't put raisins in. You can destroy things. Oh good, a fresh kugel. Crunch. Did you put raisins in? Yeah. I don't like raisins. I despise raisins. Don't put raisins. They're brownies with raisins. Out they go. You got a successful recipe. A great artist, they say, a great artist knows when to stop. That's the sign of a great artist. A great artist knows when I'm finished with the painting. It's working. Leave it. Don't tamper with success. Now, even more importantly, let's say there's an extreme scenario. And, wives would like to know, what does a husband like to eat? Your husband says, burgers and fries. What else? Roast beef and fries. What else? Chicken and fries. What else? That's it. That's your job. That becomes your job. Yeah, but I'd like, especially if you're the creative type, what about French words? Souffle, and all those EAUX words, all those, that you read about. Forget it. Save it for somebody else. Your husband doesn't want it. So what's the point? So if you could sneak it in there somehow, you sneak in some sort of green vegetable that he's never heard of, before, nobody has it. Okay, but and it's not a joke because that's what he wants. Ishak Shera, those are its own bylaw. That's what your husband wants. That's what's going to please him. As long as it's nice, it's fresh, that's what a husband wants. Okay, now we're going to get to a few don'ts in marriage. So first of all, don't do anything that irritates him, and stop right away. So for example, and again, I'm going to use an example. Women sometimes sit around snapping their gum. It's a minor thing, snapping the gum. That could drive men batty. And sometimes the husband will say to the wife, don't do that. That's just a small example. Sometimes men are on the phone and the wife is talking in the back, trying to coach him from the background. There are certain things that drive people crazy. And I advise you that if you're ever going to do something, I have an agreement with my wife. Some people work great together. Some people work better independently by delegating responsibility, and some people think they work well together, and it's a disaster. So, for example, you got to buy tickets because you're making a trip. So the husband gets on the phone, and the wife is sending, and the husband says, okay, you always say, oh, yeah. She's helping him in the background. So just wait, I'll tell you. Now, sometimes women like getting up-to-date reports. Husband has to call several. What did he say? So I've always made a deal with my wife. Listen, I will answer all your questions after I'm done with the whole thing. I'm not going to tell you after I first talk to the travel agent, and then I talk to the second one and ask what the price was. I'll let you know at the end when I've got it all done, and we work great together. I do my thing, she does, then she can ask me all the questions. When I take the kids away, or I take my kids, sometimes we do Shabbatons, whatever it is, I take my kids, we have a rule. I take my kids, okay, I'll tell you. Especially the sons. My sons really did not like this, but they knew that was a t'nai kodem l'maisa. Anytime I took them to Shabbaton or took them away anywhere, the guys were going, and they were little, at the time they were little, you know. The guys, we're going, one condition, when you come home, you have to sit down and answer all of mommy's questions, right? That was all of them, okay? And then you take them out, you know, what did they serve, who did you see, what did they eat, all the whole range of questions. Now, that being the case, I mentioned this last time, and anything that you find your husband is irritated by, try to avoid. Try to avoid. Don't try to get him not to be irritated by it. You have to try to avoid it. And if I had to pick one thing that drives men batty, so when your husband is talking, first of all, whenever your husband is talking, you try to look at him with admiration. Men love that. Men love that the wife is, right? And that it dissipates very quickly, because when you were dating, when you were going out, you know, you were like, wow, he just, you know, and then after you're married for a short time, or a long time, like 10 minutes, and then realize, there's some work to do over here. You know, it's not quite, you know, and men are disappointed. Why is she? She's contradicting me. She's arguing with me. She has an opinion. She didn't say, she's not laughing at everything I said, like when we're going out, and she actually cholek on me. And men don't like that. Men don't like that, especially. So I didn't write this on the list. I should have added this to the list. First of all, when your husband is telling you something, don't interrupt to ask for insignificant details. It's a tremendous avoda for women. It's a difficult, I mentioned this last time, and it's not a joke. When you're talking to your friends, so the problem is that when women are talking, women could talk to each other, you both talk at the same time, and you both hear each other. Now, how you do that, I don't know. But you're able to do that, and as you're talking, you're adding your, it's like a running commentary. When men talk, men like, I talk, you listen. That's how it works. Then you talk and then I listen. Watch 6 women sitting on a bench. 6 women at the park. You know, so all 6 could be basically talking at the same time, and all 6 are hearing what each other is saying. Nothing wrong with that. That's what goes wrong with creating. Watch 6 men sitting together. Usually you get 6 men, one guy's talking, everybody's listening, and all of a sudden they all burst out laughing. That's how it works. And the next guy takes his turn. That's how it works. Only one talks at a time. Now the women, it's cluck, 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 everybody's talking together. Now, men don't want a wife interrupting when they're talking, especially when I'm trying, you know, when you tell a story, sometimes you kind of build up, you know, you build up to it. So everybody's there, human nature, that's human nature. I like to kind of dramatize it and build it up a little bit. So as a man is building up, the wife interferes, the wife interrupts with something insignificant, you diffuse him and you can change the mood in the house. That's why it's so serious. The husband's in it, and he's a great mood. He's bubbling. He really wants to tell you about something. Him and Chavrusa, they really did something great today, and they accomplished it. Once a day, he says, you know, I got to the yeshiva today. What time? Well, 9:15. I got the, you know, and so my Chavrusa, you know, we're learning Baba Kama. Who do you learn with? You know, I told you, you know, there's a guy. Is he Israeli or American? You know. And boom, you know, I don't feel like, you know, you ruined it. You just ruined it. And it's an avoda. It's an avoda because Chazal say, did I mention the Medrash last time? There's a Medrash in Megillas Esther that says that when she gave them the Medrash, Yalkut Shimoni says that when Vashti was taking the women through the palace, so Chazal say she gave them a guided tour. It says, what was Vashti doing by the men's by Achashverosh at the palace? It says, she was showing the women, this is where the king eats, this is where he sleeps, this is where he drinks, this is where he, and Chazal say, based from here we see, women need to know everything. So Chazal, women need to know everything. Now, it's a gift. It's a gift because that's the gift that's going to help you to supervise your husband and your sons. Because by doing that, you're going to then keep tabs by asking questions, being curious in your natural suspicious nature that your husbands are hiding something from you. That will help you to possibly, you know, husband comes in, he's got that glow in his eyes. Husband sometimes walks in. I told you, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said the wife knows everything. The husband comes into the house. How was your day? Great. Wife is looking and he's got that glow. You know, he got a glow. So how was your day? Great. How's learning? Really good. He goes,
What's going on? What do you mean? I mean, what, something going on? No. What's for supper? You sit down at the table, starts eating, schmoozing. What's going on? What do you mean? He's got the, right? The wife knows something's going on. He has, yeah, and then, finally he said, something going on? Well, I was thinking about something, yeah. What were you thinking about? I had an idea, and it's a really good idea. Well, what is it? Well, I figured that if we pawn 2 of the children, and we get the money, and I have a friend who we're going to make an investment, we're going to go for the big one, right? And the wife got it out of him finally. And then the wife says, we're not going for any big ones. We're going to keep the children right where they are, and you're going to just go back to work tomorrow, and we're not going for any big ones. And Baruch Hashem, and that keeps him out of jail, right? Otherwise he would go broke, and end up in jail. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you that curiosity and the sense to know when your husband is up to something in order to keep him out of trouble. Now, never, ever, that's why I say, and it's an avoda because it's not your nature. You're going totally against your nature over here. It's totally against, because your nature, it's not your fault. Because this is a way, when used positively, you can find out who in the neighborhood needs help, who in the neighborhood needs help, who in the neighborhood is struggling financially. That's what your curiosity is for, so you can do chesed with it. If misguided, it'll be used for lashon hara, because you got to find out all details. So when it comes to your husband, and your husband is talking, don't upset him, number one. Number two, when your husband comes home at the end of the day, 2 very important things have to happen. 2 very important things have to happen. The first is that he needs to eat supper. And the second is you need to tell him how difficult your day was. Now, if you do this in the proper order, you will have Gan Eden. And if you do not do it in the proper order, it will be the opposite of Gan Eden. So when your husband comes and says, hi, how are you? Oh, you're not going to believe what happened. And your husband's just kind of looking past your shoulder, just trying to see the kitchen table, hoping against hope that there's food waiting there. He's starving, hungry. And you're sitting there with your all the terrible things that happen. You're not going to believe what happened. Shiffy called today. I just can't believe she said that. And your husband, he's looking, I don't know who Shiffy is. I know there are 3 Shiffys in your life, each one worse than the next. He's looking over, and he's looking past your shoulder. So what you want to do is get him to the table as soon as possible. Get him down, sitting in front of a table. He's got meat and potatoes in front of him. Now you can talk. Then you could fetch, and he could go, all right, which is the only sound you want to hear anyway when you fetch. And you just want him to go, oh, that was so horrible. Oh, I hate when that happens. Yeah, me too. And so if he's sitting in front of the table, and you think it's a joke, it's not a joke, because you want to have a good mood in your home. Your husband's sitting there and he's eating a good, fresh meal that was cooked that day or taken out of the freezer when it was frozen fresh in the freezer. And now you're able to tell him about how frustrating it is because you had to wait for the bus and you forgot your purse and you had to go back home and get it. Anyway, he's not hearing a word you're saying. And he just go, oh, really? Oh, yeah, me too. I hate when that happens. What do you mean? You forget your purse too? No, I mean, I hate when that happens when bad things happen. Oh, good. Now he is paying attention. Right? Whatever it is. If you get it in the proper order, you got to eat it. And if it's not done in the proper order, then the whole mood in the house is ruined for the course of the evening. Don't ask him to do things that he's not good at. Some men are great with their hands around the house. They fix things, they do things, they both things. Don't ask him. He's not good at it. Don't ask him to do it. It makes him nervous. Men who are not good fix-it guys, they could, don't ask him. Just hire somebody. To ask your husband, what should I do? We need the overhead chandelier, which is imperiling all of us, needs to be fixed. Now, who should I do? You want to do it? Should I call an electrician? Just tell me what to do. So get instructed. Let the husband make the decision. And the husbands sometimes are unreasonable. Men can be like, oh, again? Well, you live here too. We both turn on the light switch. It's not like it's my fault over here. Men can be very unreasonable out there. Just get him to tell you what to do. I don't want to fix it. Just call the guy. I'll pay for it. I'd rather pay for it than have it. And sometimes women just want to feel that the man is contributing. Don't worry about his contribution. As long as the contribution is a credit card, it's the only contribution you need. Don't worry about him contributing. He's just not good at it. It makes him nervous. He doesn't enjoy doing it. Don't rearrange his stuff without asking him. I would say don't look through his stuff, but I know that that's science fiction. Women look through their husband's stuff. I don't know what you're looking for, but women are always looking. You could tell. I once got my teenage daughter, I got her good, because she's also like Rachel Imenu, always touching, So I once put a note on my desk with my son's name on it. I just wrote my son's name, private. And on the back side of it, I wrote her name. On the other side, when she'd pick it up to open the note, and I just wrote inside, what are you doing reading this note? You know, so because I was telling you, and she came out, Daddy, you really got me. You know, so wives, I know you're going to look through your husband's stuff. Try not to leave any evidence that you have been, and then you must suppress the curiosity. You know, when your husband comes home, say, you know, Chaim Zalman, you know, why do you have a gun in your drawer? You know, how do you know? You know, try to suppress the curiosity. Don't rearrange his stuff. Don't rearrange it. You want to look through. Don't start, oh, well, I think this should be here. Leave him his dalit amas. Sometimes the wives, if you're the type of wife who loves your house, you're like a perfectionist on the house being really clean. George says, you know, you got to clean your stuff. Why, what, where? You know, he knows to leave his socks on the floor. You got to clean your stuff. Which stuff? Well, your third desk drawer needs to be straight. Don't be bothered by his third desk. Leave him his dalit amas over there. Let him do what he wants, and don't you start tampering with it. And a little more seriously, when I say seriously, I don't mean that's a joke. I mean a little more prominent in the home. Don't ever compare your husbands to other men. Ever, ever, ever. Don't compare your husbands to other men. If you do, you are likely to end up, there's a very good chance you're going to end up crying. Because if you compare your husband to other men, that opens up the door for him to compare you to other women. And men can be nasty. Men can be downright nasty. And the next thing you know, you're going to find out that he doesn't think your challahs are as good as Plonis's challahs where you ate last week, and you're devastated, and worse. And therefore, it's not fair. You married him. You didn't marry anybody else. And to compare him, well, how come her husband is always at minyan on time? How come her husband is always learning on Motzei Shabbos? How come her husband is spending so much money on it? Not fair. It's not fair. You want him to spend more money. You want him to be at minyan. Deal with that individually. Don't stop bringing up other people because you're crossing a red line, which if he crosses the red line, you're going to end up regretting that you did. And therefore, it's not fair. It's not fair to him, and it's not fair to yourselves. Don't ever discuss your marriage with anybody outside of your husband unless you have express permission from your husband. I know a couple, unfortunately, ended up getting divorced. This was one of the causes. I don't say it was the only cause. One of the primary causes was the wife could not restrain herself from discussing the marriage with her sisters. And her mother, to a certain extent, was mostly the sisters. And it's not fair. The first rule of marriage is your marriage is only between you and your husband, every single detail of it. Whether insignificant or you know, there are certain lines where you could talk to your mother. We got a new chair in the house. But anything having to do with the inherent relationship, he yells at me a lot, he's not considerate, he doesn't help me, doesn't give me enough money, whatever it is, unless it's something good, you are not allowed to discuss your marriage with anybody else. You're breaking the most fundamental rule of marriage, and you cannot, to do that means you are being disloyal to your husband. Your first loyalty is your husband. You could ask your husband, and you could have your husband give you guidelines, ground rules, what you could talk to your sisters about, what you could talk to sister-in-law's mother, whatever it is. But anything that he has said, I don't want this getting out, and I don't want this discussed with anybody, you are violating the first principle of marriage if you go out without his permission, and you could do serious damage to the marriage.